The message arrived just as Daniel was rinsing a cereal bowl at the sink, the apartment quiet except for the low hum of the refrigerator and the rhythmic ticking of the clock above the doorway. He dried his hands slowly, already knowing it would be the group chat from work. Fridays were always like this, plans he rarely joined, jokes he half read, invitations that felt more like obligations than kindness. Blind date tonight, Mark had written. No excuses. You need this. Daniel sighed and leaned against the counter, phone heavy in his hand. From the hallway came the faint sound of a cartoon theme song drifting from Leo's room. His son was sprawled on the bed, shoes kicked off, socks mismatched, laughing at something only an 8-year-old could find endlessly amusing. Daniel watched him for a moment, that familiar mix of love and fear tightening his chest. Every decision felt heavier since his wife had died, as if even small choices could tip the careful balance he'd built around his son. He typed slowly, "I don't think I'm ready." Almost immediately, the replies came flooding in. "Bro, it's been 3 years. One coffee won't kill you. We're helping you." Helping. The word stuck with him. He glanced at the photo taped to the fridge. Leo between his parents at the beach, his wife's hair wild in the wind, her smile effortless. Daniel swallowed, then typed, "Fine. One coffee. That's it." The cafe was already busy when he arrived, warm air fogging his glasses as he stepped inside. It smelled of roasted beans and sugar, the kind of place where conversations blended into a constant murmur. He chose a small table near the window and ordered black coffee, though his stomach was too tight to enjoy it. He kept checking the door, nerves prickling under his skin. Blind dates had always been awkward even before everything else, now they felt almost absurd. He noticed Mark and 2 others from work seated near the back, pretending very badly not to watch him. Mark lifted his cup in a mock salute before turning away, laughter bubbling up between them. Daniel frowned but said nothing. Maybe they were just curious. Maybe he was overthinking. The door opened again, the bell chiming softly, and the room seemed to tilt. She stood just inside, holding her phone like a lifeline, eyes moving cautiously from table to table. She was taller than Daniel expected, her body full and unmistakably heavy, the fabric of her blue dress falling simply without apology. Her hair was pulled back, a few loose strands framing a round, gentle face. She wore glasses, and behind them her eyes were alert, sharp, almost bracing for impact. Daniel felt the realization creep in slowly, unwelcome and cold. This was the joke. His coworkers' laughter from the corner suddenly made sense. The exaggerated encouragement, the way Mark had grinned when Daniel agreed. Heat rose up Daniel's neck, a mix of anger and shame, not at her, never at her, but at himself for not seeing it sooner. She spotted him then, hesitated, and walked over. "Daniel," she asked, her voice steady but careful, like someone used to stepping onto thin ice. He stood immediately, chair scraping back. "Yes. Hi, you must be Anna." She nodded, surprised by his quickness, and shook his hand. Her grip was firm, warm, nothing uncertain about it. Up close, he noticed faint freckles on her cheeks and a nervous habit of pressing her lips together when she waited. They sat. For a moment, neither spoke. Daniel could feel eyes on them, could hear the muffled snickering behind him. Anna noticed too. Her shoulders stiffened, and she glanced once toward the back of the cafe, then back at him. "Before we order," she said quietly, "I need to ask something." "Of course. If this is some kind of joke," she continued, meeting his gaze directly, "I usually leave within 5 minutes. I don't make a scene anymore. I just go." The word anymore landed heavily between them. Daniel didn't hesitate. "If this is a joke," he said, low and sincere, "then they picked the wrong person. I didn't agree to hurt anyone." Something in his tone made her pause. She studied his face, as if searching for cracks, for sarcasm. Finding none, she exhaled slowly. "Okay," she said, "coffee, then." He ordered for both of them, asking first how she took hers, and felt a strange, grounding calm settle over him as the cups arrived. He wrapped his hands around the mug, grateful for the warmth. "So," he began, "tell me about you." She blinked, clearly unused to the question being asked without irony. "I work at the city library," she said after a moment. "Mostly archives, old maps, local history. Things people forget exist." "That sounds important." She smiled faintly. "I like it. Books don't stare." Daniel nodded. He understood that more than he expected. He told her about Leo, about learning to braid hair badly, about school lunches and science projects assembled at midnight. He didn't shy away from mentioning his wife, but he didn't linger either. Anna listened, really listened, her eyes softening when he talked about his son. From the corner, someone laughed too loudly. Anna flinched, just a little. People think, she said carefully, that because I look like this, I must be desperate. Or grateful for attention, or unaware. Daniel felt something tighten in his chest. They're wrong. She gave a small shrug. They usually are. The laughter rose again, sharper this time, and Daniel turned his head. Mark wasn't even pretending anymore, watching openly now, elbowing the guy beside him. The anger that had been simmering finally found oxygen. Daniel faced forward again, jaw set, his voice calm but edged with steel. I'm really glad you came, he said to Anna. And he meant it. She searched his face, then nodded. Me too. So far. He leaned back in his chair, eyes drifting once more toward the corner table, something decisive settling inside him. The joke had gone far enough. Daniel pushed his chair back and stood, the scrape of wood against tile cutting cleanly through the noise of the cafe. Conversations didn't stop all at once, but something shifted. People sensed when a moment was about to become something else. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Years of reading bedtime stories and calming a frightened child at 3 in the morning had taught him how to speak so that people listened. You know, he said, turning fully toward the back table, my son asks me questions I don't always know how to answer. Mark froze with his cup halfway to his mouth. The others glanced around, suddenly interested in their phones, in the window, in anything but Daniel's eyes. He asks me why some kids get picked on at school, Daniel continued. Why being different is funny. Why laughter sometimes sounds sharp instead of happy. Mark cleared his throat. Dan, come on, it was just a joke, Daniel finished for him. His voice was even, almost gentle, which somehow made it worse. That's what people always say when they don't want to take responsibility. A few nearby patrons had gone quiet now, curiosity pulling them into the moment whether they wanted it or not. Anna sat very still at the table, her hands folded together so tightly her knuckles had gone pale. She kept her gaze down, as if bracing for the familiar ending. Daniel gestured lightly toward her without looking away from his coworkers. This woman walked in here knowing she might be laughed at. She sat down anyway. That takes more courage than anything you've shown tonight. Mark's face flushed. We were just trying to help you move on, by using another human being as a punchline. Daniel asked. That's not help. That's cruelty dressed up as concern. Someone at the table muttered an apology, barely audible. Daniel shook his head. Save it. I don't want excuses. I want you to understand something. He paused, letting the silence stretch. Leo's face flashed in his mind, wide-eyed, trusting, always watching how his father handled the world. Daniel straightened slightly, as if his son were right there beside him. I don't get to opt out of moments like this, he said. Everything I do teaches my kid what kind of man he should be. And I refuse to teach him that kindness is optional when a joke is easier. Mark opened his mouth, then closed it again. The laughter was gone now, replaced by an uncomfortable, heavy quiet. A woman at the next table nodded faintly. Someone else looked down, embarrassed. Daniel turned back to Anna. She finally looked up, uncertainty flickering across her face. She'd heard words like these before, usually right before someone walked away anyway. Daniel saw the expectation there, the practiced readiness for disappointment. I'm sorry, he said to her, and this time his voice was only for her. Not for them, for letting you walk into this without knowing. Her throat bobbed as she swallowed. Most people don't say anything, she replied quietly. They just endure it. I don't want to endure my life, Daniel said. And I don't want you to have to either. He gestured toward the door. If you want to leave, I'll walk you out. No explanations required. If you want to stay, I'd like to keep talking. Either way, it's your choice. The cafe seemed to hold its breath. Anna looked around, at the watching strangers, at the coworkers who suddenly couldn't meet her eyes, at Daniel standing there, offering her something she wasn't used to being given. Control. She took a slow breath and let it out. I'd like to stay, she said. Something loosened in Daniel's chest. He pulled his chair back for her and sat down again, deliberately turning his back on the table in the corner. He picked up his coffee, which had gone cold, and took a sip anyway. They talked. Not small talk, not forced pleasantries, but the kind of conversation that unfolds when two people decide to be honest. Anna told him about growing up in a house where food was comfort and silence was safer than speaking up. About the first time a boy asked her out as a dare, and how she'd gone anyway, refusing to hide. Daniel listened, not interrupting, not trying to fix anything. Just listening. He told her about the early mornings when the apartment felt too quiet. About the guilt of laughing again after his wife died, as if joy were a betrayal. About Leo asking once if mommy would be mad that daddy smiled at the park. Anna smiled sadly. Kids understand more than we think. They do, Daniel agreed. That's why I have to get this stuff right. Time passed unnoticed. The cafe thinned out, chairs stacking, lights dimming slightly. No one from the back table came over. Eventually, they paid and stepped outside together. The night air was cool, carrying the distant sound of traffic and something sweet from a bakery down the block. They stood for a moment on the sidewalk, neither quite ready to leave. Thank you, Anna said finally. For tonight. For everything. Daniel shook his head. Thank you for giving me the chance to do the right thing. She laughed softly at that. Most people don't see it as a chance. Well, he said, hands in his pockets, most people are wrong. They exchanged numbers without ceremony. No promises, no grand gestures. Just an understanding. As Anna walked toward her car, Daniel watched her go, feeling lighter than he had in years. Not because he'd impressed anyone. Not because he'd been brave, but because, for once, he'd chosen to be kind, out loud.